prophethood of Muhammad, peace be upon him. It is narrated that one of his companions, while in Mecca, said, "These pagans who are torturing and abusing and humiliating and murdering many believers simply because they said God is one, and these idols that you're worshiping are statues that have no divine authority or power." That's what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, preached. That these idols that we see in Mecca that everybody's worshiping, those aren't gods. They don't have divine power. God is the creator of the universe, and he's given us all a moral code to live by. So Arabia was common to drinking and debauchery, and the Prophet Muhammad spoke against those things. So they became a threat to their way of life. But this threat is coming from a moral high ground that they're not used to, right? And so after 13 years of abuse and humiliation, the Muslims were forced to migrate away from Mecca. All of them had to pick up and leave everything. Many of them were robbed of everything they had because a missionary named Mus'ab has convinced some people in a large city called Yathrib to embrace the religion. How did he convince them? He was teaching them the Quran that he had learned and telling them what it means to be a Muslim. There was no military existing for Islam. So these tribal people welcomed the Prophet Muhammad and his companions in Medina. On the way out, it was found out that there was an assassination plot planned by the pagans. They want to kill Prophet Muhammad. And they said that we will kill him, and they found out that Muslims were migrating. They said, "We will catch you and kill you." So there is clearly a threat from these people. When they gathered in Yathrib, and now you have from about 200 and some believers, now you have 600-700 believers in a very short amount of time, as due to the missionary work of Mus'ab. The Prophet Muhammad made a pact with them. God has required of me that we do establish a defensive military to protect ourselves from the potential threat of these pagans. And we must join and unify with the Jewish tribes and the remaining pagans of this society to form a citizenship of the city that we live in. And he drew this up. In this treaty that he drew up, there was rights given to everybody equally. If you're Jewish, you continue to worship, you go to your synagogue, you have your money, your wealth, all of these things. There's no anything of what people are trying to claim. So then the verse comes down, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he learned from someone he sent that these pagans are saying, "We're going to destroy the Muslims." And they've gone to a Syrian expedition or a caravan to get weapons from the Byzantine military. And so the verse is revealed. This verse is chapter 22, verse 39 and 40. It's really important because people are saying Islam is all about terrorism. This is your ammunition against a false claim. Chapter 22, verse 39 and 40. God told the Prophet Muhammad, "Permission to take up arms is hereby given to those who were attacked because they have been oppressed. Certainly God is fully capable of giving them victory. He is giving permission to those who are unjustly exiled from their homes simply because they said, 'God is our only Lord.' If it was not that God causes some people to be checked by others, there would be many demolished monasteries, churches, temples, and mosques in which the name of God is mentioned. God will support those who support him. Indeed, God is powerful and mighty." This verse is actually saying that religious freedom should be preserved all over the world, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim. The literal words that are used that have no other interpretation from the Arabic lexicon are, if God does not give this right, then some oppressors will cause the places of worship of God to be destroyed, whether they're monasteries, whether they're churches or temples or synagogues. So the first verse telling the Prophet Muhammad they have the right to form an army and to defend themselves is actually talking about, it's defining the problem that they have with the pagan Meccans as a lack of freedom of religion that has been offered them, right? So then the second verse, it did tell them to begin to fight them. It says, "Wage war for God's sake." This is chapter 2, verse 190 through 193. Chapter 2, verse 190 through 193. God says to the Prophet Muhammad, Wage war for God's sake against only those who wage war against you, and do not be the aggressors. Indeed, God does not love the aggressors. Here it comes. Kill them wherever you find them, and expel them from where they expelled you, because persecution is worse than killing. Do not fight them at the sacred mosque until they bring the fight to you there. If that happens, then kill them. That is the recompense for the disbelievers. If they cease to fight, then know that God is indeed forgiving and merciful. So you can see where you can take a couple of statements out of the 3 verses and say, here it says, kill the disbelievers, which they're calling infidels. I'm not sure what the difference or why. A disbeliever is someone who's the pagan polytheist of Mecca is what it's referring to. And it is saying in the context of them fighting them and as a response of them fighting them, and it specifically commands the Muslims to not be the aggressors. But yet, this verse has been somehow used to prove that Islam is teaching kill all the infidels. By the way, one of the false statements I heard on the radio on the way up here is that Islam spread by the sword and all of that. Indonesia is the largest concentration of Muslims on planet Earth. There are 290 million Muslims in Indonesia, which is an archipelago of many islands off Southeast Asia. There has been recorded by no historian any war that took place within any 100 miles of any border of Indonesia. There was never a caliphate in Indonesia. Why did Indonesia go from Buddhist and Hindu to Muslim? Because that's what they chose when they met Muslim traders and commerce people that came from the ships to come settle there. Over centuries, the people there, because of knowing Muslims, fair, good, old-fashioned missionary work, they wanted to convert because that's what appealed to their hearts, as we saw some of these scholars saying over here. The Quran says in chapter 7, verse 61, about war. This chapter is talking about the potential reality of war, and whenever it first came to the Muslims, it says, if the disbelievers incline to peace, then you are obligated to make peace with them. Chapter 7, verse 61. It says, if they incline to peace, you are obligated to incline to peace. The commandment to not take life unjustly, do not murder, is found in the Quran in many places. And it gives the stipulation without just right. Without just right has been identified by our scholars throughout our history as one of a few cases. As our people that studied law and our policemen will tell you, in Islamic law, as it is in American law, if someone comes attacking you and you use some sort of means to protect yourself while under the duress of attack and the threat of physical danger, you are not a murderer if you happen to kill them in the process. So that's one just right, to defend yourself individually. Another just right is that every state should protect itself from the potential threat of oppressive or imperial neighbors. So to have a standing military and to fight the just war against evil people or oppressive people, if you kill them, you are not a murderer. And the last is capital punishment. If somebody kills somebody or rapes someone, or in our law, which is not American law, people who deal drugs and alcohol, they can be killed. So I'll just conclude with one point here. Give me 2 minutes, please. I'm sorry. The suicide bombing fallacy. The Quran says in chapter 4, I don't have the verse in my mind, but it says, "La taqtulu anfusakum." Don't kill yourself, right? There's no other way to translate that, right? Don't kill yourself. It's mentioned that way. In another verse it says, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Do not cause your death by your own hands, right? These are 2 verses of the Quran. So somebody says, I'm going to go do a suicide bombing. They're not going to heaven, according to the Quran, right? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, any Muslim who kills a non-Muslim who has a treaty of peace with the Muslims, that person who killed him will never enter or smell the fragrance of heaven. So this claim that you're going to heaven when you kill all these innocents, it's absolutely contrary to the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad. I just want to conclude with this one point, okay? Please work with me here, okay? Just to take your, I'm gonna mention some things. If you agree, please raise your hand, okay? If you agree with the idea that I'm giving you, raise your hand, okay? The first idea is, you're talking with somebody, family member, co-worker, and this person is becoming very annoying and offensive to you. You have this thought in your mind to start yelling and get angry and use language, but then you tell yourself deep down, that's not the way of a good person. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to control myself. Raise your hand if you think that's a good thing to do. Okay? Next one. You're at school or at work, and someone of the opposite gender, or I guess nowadays the same gender, you're attracted to them, okay? And that is not somebody who is your family, you're not married to that person. But you feel attracted and you think, I'll pursue this person. I'll pursue them and maybe, you know, if the stars align, I can get what I desire. But then, in the back of your head, you say, no, that's not a godly, that's not a pious, that's not a morally right thing to do. I'm not married to that person. I should be married to take care of those desires. Raise your hand if you like that way of functioning. Raise your hand if you say, no, he should go after it. Okay, I saw somebody didn't raise their hand. I was like, whoa, we got some liberal crowd here. So I'll give you one more. Say, for example, you're talking to someone and you know the truth is going to get you into a little problem, right? But you know that you have to tell the truth and you should not be a liar, right? So you think, you know what, I'm just going to tell the truth and I'm just trying to get out of the situation with honesty. Raise your hand. You don't lie. Okay. Who thinks we should have these wonderful men and women who put their life on the line to protect our society from the corrupt and harmful elements, the police force? Raise your hand if you want them. You better all raise your hand. Okay. Who thinks we need a fire department? Yes. They're going to put their life on the line for all of us, right? Who thinks we need a standing military to protect our country? Okay. According to 14 centuries of Sharia, of Islamic law, I have given you step by step every concept of the term jihad. And you all were comfortable with it and thought it was a good idea and it makes sense. So I just want you to know, jihad is a good thing, right? It's just hard to understand things that have been pressed in your mind for 15 years. God bless you. Please forgive me for going way over. I'm trying to counter 15 years of discussion with an hour of discussion. So please forgive me. It's my mistake. I was disrespectful to my panelists here. I'm so sorry about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imam. We appreciate it. If you'd like to take a break, as your program says, we'll come back. We come back at 3:20. Get some refreshments outside, talk among each other, and we'll be back to see you in about 10 minutes. Thank you.